So I've got 3 of these climbing squash frames, and I was asked to sort of talk about how I tie the plants in, sort of what logic do I use, what formula do I use. And I don't really, I do sort of play it by ear a bit. So I'll just sort of talk through these different plants in a kind of semi-random way that I've decided to train them. So in this case, this plant was growing really vigorously, really tall, so I decided just to let it grow up its cane here and across here, and then it's kind of probably going to go like along there, along that top. And so the reason I let it do that is because of its vigor. You know, it was already sort of right up here, so I just wanted it to go, give it as much room as possible. And it seems to be growing pretty well, although at the moment it's mostly male flowers because it's probably a bit stressed because of the crazy weather we've been having. But that was that plant. So this next one here is well, that's actually another side shoot from this one, which I'm sort of growing along this support here. And then this one is, you know, it's growing much slower, so I'll probably take this one up this cane here, and then I'll probably take it this way and sort of around here, around this corner. I don't mind having plants cross over each other either. They don't seem to mind. You know, so one plant can go this way along a support and one plant can go that way along a support. And then this one's going to go along here, and then it's going to go up here, and then it'll probably come along here. So, you know, I'm just trying to space things around, and I'm just watching the plants. I'm not kind of following any particular formula. I'm responding to the way the plants are growing and the size of the fruits. And so if we go back down here, you'll see a lot of these are relatively small fruits, so the trumpettinos and things like that. But this one here, for example, is a crown prince, I think, probably. So that's going to be really heavy. So I've put a support on here, and this is also, I think, a crown prince, and that's why I've immediately kind of put it on a support here, and put this one on a support here, because these are all crown prince. So I want to make as much use as possible of these cross pieces, so that every side shoot is basically on a support batten, so that it can be supported. I don't want any fruits supported on these canes, because these canes are just old canes and they're really just to support unfruiting stems. So I've got another one growing here, but I'll tie that, you know, to that support there. So that's the kind of approach that I'm using. So the strings that I'm using this really cheap hemp string to tie the plants in temporarily, and I'm kind of winding the plants along the battens, and I'm supporting the fruits with this really thick hemp string so that I don't damage the stems of the fruits. So most of the time I'm just using this upright cane, but occasionally I'll put a diagonal cane in when I need one. So in this case, I've got this big long side shoot here, and again with side shoots, I'm not being very religious about it. So sometimes I'll let the side shoots grow if the plant looks really vigorous, and it's got a lot of space, and then I'll maybe just get lots of smaller squash off that, because I don't mind, you know, a mix of big squash and small squash. You know, I'm not one of these people that's always trying to grow big things. You know, in cooking, what we often find is we don't want big things. We want a mix of things. You know, occasionally we want some, you know, really big squash for some big family dinner or something like that, but sometimes you just want a little one just for one person or just for 2 people. So yeah, we go for generally medium size as the kind of average, but you know, still plenty of small and just a very few big. So in this case, I want this stem here to grow along this cane, this batten, and I want it to sort of support itself. So I'll sort of drape it over here like that, and as it gets a bit longer, I'll sort of keep on doing this. So I'm just, as I say, I'm just using this really cheap hemp string because I don't really care about longevity. All I care about is that I'm just supporting this stem just for a few weeks until I can kind of wrap it around and then it can support itself. So now I've got this cane in again, which is just temporary. I can get this great long side shoot here and kind of loop it round there. I'll just tie it in here, and I want this one probably to come up here, and then it's got all that length down there to sort of go after. Yeah, that should be great. So this is kind of what I've ended up with. And so my philosophy, I think you can sum up to be a bit like the way that I raised my kids, which is to kind of nudge them in the right direction and then support them in whatever way they kind of decide they want to express themselves, in the hope that they'll kind of become the best plant that that individual plant can be, you know, and not kind of consider that every crown prince is going to grow the same and every trumpetino is going to grow the same. You know, they're not. They might be the same variety, but they're not the same plant. So treat them all as individuals rather than too much prescriptive rules.